Welcome back to Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp. With me today is Alan Cox. And here's a bit about Alan. He has an amazing background. Alan is an entrepreneur who has suffered decades of poor mental health. Alan had setback after setback, including coming close to losing his life in the Christchurch earthquake. Allen has hit rock bottom multiple times and made numerous attempts on his own life, but he's managed to bounce back with an incredible story of resilience and recovery from which we can all learn. Allen has now devoted his life to improving the well being of millions of people around the world. A crucial part of this mission is Allen's impact business, EverYellow, who have created a fascinating mental fitness app that is getting great results for those who use it. Alan believes that a thriving mindset is accessible to all of us, and it's for and easier to get than we might realize. And without further ado, let's welcome Alan Cox.
Hello, it's wonderful to be here, Genesis. I'm quite excited.
Thank you so much, Alan, because you are tuning in all the way from New Zealand. So this is amazing.
Yeah, it's a lovely place to tune in from.
And today, Alan, we're going to talk about changing the mental health narrative from darkness to aspirational, as well as weaving in mental fitness. What is it and why it's important? So let's talk about your personal background, because I want to know, what was it like for you to grow up in New Zealand? What are some of the things that stuck with you that left an impact in order to get you to where you are now? And then we'll dive into the other pieces later on.
Yeah, thank you. I might live in New Zealand now. I've been here for 20 years or a bit more than that, but I actually grew up in the southeast of England. My childhood, I guess, would be best described as difficult and lonely. Thinking back to that time, and now that I know what I know, when you're very young and growing up, you are very much a product of your environment, right? And I don't kind of blame my mother kind of thing and my parents, but they had their own challenges, and my mum had her own health problems, and that what that resulted in is me kind of having quite a lot of somewhat abusive and traumatic experiences at a very, very early age. And you kind of, I guess you kind of just grow up thinking, what is, this is normal, and normal isn't great, and I remember going through school and partially really being a bit of a misfit, to be honest, and sometimes to get noticed, I would do silly things, and get into trouble, but nobody talks about mental health and stuff at that age, and that's how my life was.
And do you feel like you growing up in that environment, because we know that sometimes our parents do what they think is best, when in actuality they're not seeing it from our vantage point, and we are just trying to learn and grow while still being respectful to our parents? Do you think that that weighed on you heavy when it came to the mental health aspect?
Yeah, well, I guess one of the reasons I find it somewhat difficult to answer questions about my childhood and what what I think my parents did, is, to be honest, I actually remember very little of it. I think some of my earliest memories that I can remember would be, when I'm, 8, 9, 10. So it's almost like maybe the trauma of whatever came before then has kind of almost blocked out that part of my life. But really, I just don't. I think it was partly generational. Like my mum and my dad both were brought up by parents in that post-war era of I guess their parents would have had a hell of a lot of trauma that they were covering up, and that passes on to them, and I think they probably to some degree mimicked what their parents did. And I also think that at that time there was probably very, very little education or narrative around about good parenting. I'm very, very fortunate that when my eldest child is like 23 now, and I think that kind of era of being interested in reading books about what is the best way to bring up your child is actually fairly new. And I honestly think that my parents, I don't mean this in a bad way, I don't think they really thought about good parenting. You had a kid and you went to work so you could put food on the table, and it kind of felt like that was pretty much it.
And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. And I really appreciate you just being as open as you can about the subject matter, because it is hard. So it's so important that you share that, because there may be somebody that will resonate with what you just said, Alan. And I want you to talk about, how do you necessarily change the mental health narrative from darkness to aspirational? Because we know that with mental health, there's a lot of stigmas around it. There are some negative stigmas and there's some positive stigmas. And people don't always want to address the elephant in the room, because they don't want certain labels to be attached to them, when in actuality, I feel like everyone deals with some form of mental health, whether it's very entry level or whether it's deep diving. And me myself, I've had my share out of being a victim of bullying at a young age that caused my mental health to suffer in some areas.
Yeah. So as long as I can remember, and I think this is still true today, when we hear anything about mental health in the media or anywhere, it's pretty much universally connected with poor mental health, right? I even hear professional people in the mental health sphere that will say something like, yeah, I'm dealing with some people with mental health, right? And I kind of like think, what are you saying? Because like everyone has mental health, and it's either poor, good, or great, right? And it's just the same as any other aspect of your, it's a bit like your digestive health, right? Imagine if somebody said to you, oh yeah, Fred over there's got digestive health, and you'd probably think, oh well, that's good, right? We all have that. But when we hear about mental health, all of the focus, all of the narrative points straight to there's something wrong. And that's the narrative that we need to change. What we need to change the narrative to is one where understanding that mental health is something that we all have, and it is a wide spectrum. And by having really good mental health actually unlocks all opportunity, right? And that's the major opportunity we have here, both at an individual level and also for schools, organizations, for societies, is that if we change the narrative of mental health as being a creator of opportunity and a sweeping away of barriers to opportunity, I think it takes on a whole new meaning. If you was to just to kind of put it in simple terms, if you think of our mental health as being on a spectrum between, I'm drastically oversimplifying things here, but if generally speaking, and I'm not talking about people with, say, diagnosed mental illnesses like schizophrenia or something like that, right? I'm talking about general mental health. Let's just say you have a spectrum of 1 to 10, right? Where 1 is you're practically suicidal, maybe. 10, you're floating off the floor and you're more enlightened than the Dalai Lama, right? The reality is, right, so the reality is, and we have data on this, right, most people, about 60% of people, are in just that middle zone of 5 to 6, right? And about 20% of people are in the lower zone, and only 20% of people are kind of good or very good, right? And while that, if you kind of, depending on if you're a glass half full person or the other, you might look at that quite depressingly and think, oh my God, everyone's only a 5 point whatever or 5 to 6. I actually look at that and think, wow, what an amazing opportunity. If we've managed to do all of the great things we've done on this planet when everyone is only a 5 to 6, or most people are a 5 to 6, just imagine what we could do, right? As a society, if everyone shifted up a bit. And that's why we need to change the narrative. The other part of that is that when we talk in such binary terms, in terms of you're either mentally unhealthy or you're healthy, once you like, again, just using those numbers, if you're like about a 2 to 3, you're kind of, in quotes, mentally unhealthy, right? You probably need to go and see the doctor. Once you go over to, say, 3.5, 4, you're healthy, right? But you're far from optimal, right? And that's the other problem with the current narrative, is that, like, just because you're not mentally unwell, that doesn't mean it's job done. So there's literally, the vast majority of humanity is simply languishing, and they're kind of just stuck on this treadmill of life. They don't feel that they have the courage or the sense of self-worth that they can, educate themselves to get a better job, or to stand up to their boss or their partner, or whatever those things are. I'd really love to learn guitar, but I'm not good enough, Well,
yes.
There's all those,
So I would say all the misnomers and the assumptions and the external factors can really weigh in and affect someone's mental health. And I feel like the fact that in society, think about mental health at a surface level, but they never actually dig deep to uncover what is mental health, what is the RCA, what is the root cause analysis. Is a person really suffering with mental health, or maybe they experience a life circumstance that caused them to feel this way, but they're not necessarily dealing with a mental health crisis. And just
Mm.
understanding where that individual is, and not necessarily putting that individual on a spectrum because they are seeing certain tendencies that that individual is doing. We need to really peel the layers of the onion back and understand. And unless we fully understand what that human being is going through, then we are not going to be able to adequately and effectively help that individual, because we are only seeing it from one vantage point and focal point. Would you agree?
Exactly right. Exactly right. And I think also the other kind of big part of the narrative around mental health that we need to try and adopt is we need to kind of educate people that it's something that they need to take ownership of, right? And there's kind of two parts to that. One, just like physical fitness, right? We don't think of physical fitness as we'll go to the doctor or someone to help us get fit, right? You know that you have to put the time in, you have to put the effort in, right? And secondly, you know, for however wrong it might be, the reality is, and as far as I can predict, I think the reality will be the same for decades to come, is that there will never be enough therapists that are accessible to us, right? There's just not enough of them. They cost too much money. I'm far from kind of destitute, right? When I consider myself very fortunate, but I can't afford to go and see a therapist. You know, $180 an hour. You know, there's much better things I need to spend that money on. So I guess with that reality in mind, however hard it might be, we need to kind of start to generate this narrative about, look, it's something that you need to own. You know, it's something you need to start, consciously working on, just like your physical fitness or your, physical health.
I completely agree, because I like to say your health is equivalent to your wealth. If you are not taking appropriate actions, how do you extend or expect to see the results if you're not willing to put in the work? And Alan, I know that you are a mental health change maker. So, how did you get to that point after dealing with your own struggles of life circumstances? What was your aha moment or breaking point that opened your eyes and took the blinders off to make you realize there's something that Alan needs to do for Alan in order for me to leave the imprint that I want to use to drive an impact in order for me to be the world changer that I desire to be?
I think there's kind of two critical points there. First of all, there was the kind of what was the aha moment in my own recovery, and then there was another kind of aha moment in me doing something for the planet, kind of thing. And I'll take the first one. I had, as you said at the beginning, I'd not long had quite a close to death experience in the Canterbury earthquakes, and it was very traumatic. I ended up having a major mental breakdown, and I didn't even know what a mental breakdown was before, to be honest. And I didn't even know that there was kind of a scale of mental breakdowns. My one was particularly severe. It was kind of almost stroke-like. I could hardly talk. I couldn't walk for more than like 20 yards, and I would spend, I could only spend about a couple of hours at the most awake at any one time, and nearly all day when my wife was at work, I was asleep in bed. I was told at the time that because of the severity of my breakdown, I need to get used to the fact that it will be a minimum of a year before I'm back to wellness. And that was hard. And, there was attempts on my life. I didn't want to deal with a year of this, right? But look, my kind of aha moment was that I basically learned that you can work on your mental well-being through a process which is actually called neuroplasticity, right? Where you're just making very small positive changes to the way your brain works. And you can do that just by listening to the right material. Like I at the time, I found it, I was using all of I'd been recommended all these different types of apps. I didn't want to do any of them, those asking me to do things I didn't want to do. I could hardly read a paragraph, right, of a book without not remembering what I just read. That's how it was. But what I discovered is that if you've got the right material and you just kind of play that stuff on repeat, even while you're not consciously listening, while you're sleeping, it works on your brain. And I made up my own playlist. I just basically stole stuff from YouTube, right? And I remember I learned how to do audio, what do you call it, apps that basically where you can cut out audio and things like that. And all the bits that didn't resonate, I didn't like, I took out, and I would just put this stuff on. And to cut a long story short, I was back to work within 3 months.
That is incredible.
And my care workers thought I was faking it. It was quite funny. I remember laughing, saying, "No, I actually feel okay." But the thing is, and this is where it comes back to that narrative about mental well-being, right? Is a shift had happened, right, where it was no longer about being well. It was I discovered this new pathway. I discovered that the way I react to things and the way I think about things and my belief system, all of that had started to shift. So I almost became addicted, and I kind of just wanted to do more and more of it. I started reading about Buddhism and all kinds of things. But the second kind of shift really came probably 2 years later, when I think I was running a consultancy at the time, and things weren't really going that well. And at that same time, there was some really high-profile suicides. Avicii, Anthony Bourdain, and there's all of this stuff in the media, and I kind of remembered back to what had worked for me, and I thought, I wonder if there's something in this, that let's do something. So that was kind of what led to what I'm doing now.
And thank you for sharing that, because it's so important that we realize that sometimes things happen to us, but it also happens for us to grow, for us to get outside of the comfort zone. And I did a segment a while back called Pain to Purpose. Sometimes we endure the pain, but while enduring that pain, it's not always fun or pretty, but it's that pain that helps us ignite or pushes us into purpose. And I want you to talk about your company, EverYellow, and then we'll close out this segment in a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, one of the things, after kind of researching the domain, I basically found that, especially when people are in a kind of a lower level of mental well-being, the current crop of apps out there are actually very challenging for them. They often require people to kind of take time out of their day that they find difficult. Maybe they've got children, maybe they're working or running a couple of jobs. They often require them to do things that they just don't want to do. Write a letter to your future self or whatever. And I'm not dismissing that stuff, but when you're in that mind space, you just don't want to do that stuff, right? And the biggest thing of all is people just don't enjoy using them. They're not an enjoyable experience. So I actually was quite disappointed to learn that out of all of the apps that are out there, very few of them have actually got any proven efficacy. So I wanted to really create something that genuinely worked and was highly accessible. People could use it anytime, anywhere. So that's what we did with EverYellow. What EverYellow? So EverYellow is kind of what I'd call it is like a mental conditioning app, and the way it works is when you put you can play it on your car stereo if you want to, but it's best with headphones. But you literally, every time you press play, we create a brand new session for you, which is like a mix of narrated content and over top of like music and sounds. And every time you listen, you're just making small but significant adjustments to your mindset, and people enjoy using it, and it's helping people in so many ways, and we're very, very pleased with the results it's getting.
That is amazing. And the name of it, I think I said it incorrectly. It's EverYellow instead of EverYellow.
No, EverYellow.
Oh, EverYellow. So I said it, okay, correct. And I'm so glad that you took something and you made it into something that was conducive for everyone based on you not seeing what you wanted in the market. So you said there was a gap, and I have what can fill that gap, and that was EverYellow. And you introduced that to the market because you wanted to not only help yourself but help other people who were going through something similar. And that's amazing. So congratulations on that. And thank you so much, Alan, for being vulnerable, being transparent, and being authentic during this segment, and just open up and talking about your childhood, talking about the traumas, talking about your attempts of suicide, and now talking about your road to recovery and the incredible things that you are doing to leave an imprint, drive an impact, and be the world changer. And I want you to tell the listeners and the viewers once again who you are, how they could connect with you on social media, and leave us with 1 or 2 gems. As you know, the mission is to educate, inspire, and motivate when you are on gems, dropping gems.
So look, first of all, EverYellow is a social impact business. So we've made a very comprehensive version of EverYellow available for free to everyone. We never want money to be a barrier to well-being. So you can go to the easiest way is to go to the website, www.everyellow.com, and that will have the links that will tell you about the app, and how you can use it, and then it has the links to the Apple and Google App Store. yeah, so you can connect with me, EverYellow app on Facebook and Instagram. And I have a profile on, if you search my name on LinkedIn, I'm on there as well. You caught me out. 2 gems have I got to give you, right? Okay, well, I think one of them is just, especially to those people that kind of maybe in a, let's talk about 2 different people. The people that are in a bit of a dark space right now, you can do it, and there's like, I remember thinking, look, life isn't really worth living. I don't want to be in this life, but I'm so glad that I was not successful, right, in trying to take my life, because there is, there's so much good that can come out of it, and what have you. For those people that are just kind of on that treadmill of life, you can unlock so much opportunity, and it's really one of those things that it's hard to explain why you should do it until you actually experience it. Once you start experiencing the benefits of a fit mind, you really start seeing how it can unlock all kinds of opportunity.
Amazing, Alan. Thank you so much for sharing those gems. And listeners and viewers, you just heard Alan Cox here on Gems. I want to remind you that you are a masterpiece. You were created for a purpose. You do matter. And don't ever let somebody place limitations on you. Don't allow people to dim your light. And don't allow your mindset to cause you to retreat, but pull up and pop. And POP is Prepared on Purpose, an acronym that I came up with because I believe in you and I know you are destined for greatness. But believe in yourself and see yourself as a precious gem, because somebody needs you to be your true, authentic self so you can make this world a better place. And until we chat next time, peace, love, and lots of blessings. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, share it with a family member or a friend that may be struggling with mental health or that you think this segment is going to resonate with. And don't forget to subscribe to our video component on YouTube, Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp. Have an amazing day.